Thanks for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Emily.
And we're passionate about holistic wellness that real people with real lives can achieve.
We see you out there striving for perfection, but we want you to know that good enough can be good enough.
Before we get started, everything we talk about in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Always talk to your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, medication, or supplements.
Welcome to Body Literacy 101. School is now in session. Your instructor today is Nutritional Therapy Practitioner Kayla King. This is the third of 8 sessions, which will explore the basic functions of the body and get you more comfortable in your own skin. And now, session 3, the endocrine system.
So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the endocrine system, and when you hear the word endocrine, you can just basically substitute it for the word hormones. The endocrine system is how the hormones in our bodies work all together. And the primary function of hormones is communication, relaying information and instructions between cells. The endocrine system partners with the neurological system for communication within the body.
I'm really excited about this one. I feel like it's one I know a little bit less about than the other ones.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy talking about endocrine system a lot. And the part that it's about communication is really key, because it's not that we need to fix our hormones for proper health and stuff. It's that we're tracking down why the hormones are communicating what they're communicating. They're trying to tell not only each other something, but you something about what's going on inside your body.
That's interesting. I feel like that gives it a little more diversity and more of a 3D look at it than just wow, my hormone levels are off. That's very
right.
2D, whereas the way you explain it is very 3D in
right.
looking at it.
Yeah, and the endocrine system is so much more than just sex hormones. I think that's what we think about when we think about hormones, is testosterone and estrogen and progesterone. But it also includes your stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, and blood sugar regulating hormones like insulin, digestive hormones and thyroid hormones. And one of the things I learned from the NTA is that hormones are like an orchestra. The pituitary gland is the conductor for the endocrine organs, while the hypothalamus is the manager, giving the pituitary its job description.
Yeah, that's such a helpful way to describe it.
Yeah. Hey, it's Kayla, just dropping in here before we really dive deep into this episode to let you know that throughout this episode I refer to the HPA axis as the pituitary calling the shots and the hypothalamus following its orders, but in reality, the hypothalamus calls the shots, pituitary follows its orders. So, just know that throughout this episode I say them backward, but in all reality it is the hypothalamus, then the pituitary, then whatever organ follows it. Alright, let's jump right back in. So, everything starts with the pituitary gland, and the pituitary lives near the brain, and it is the one that's collecting all the information and telling all the other organs and glands what to do. And then it sends messages to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is what sends the messages to the other organs. So the pituitary is collecting the information, telling the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is then saying, all right, ovaries, you need to do this. Thyroid, you need to do that. Oh, we got way too much of this. We need to pull back on that. So all that kind of stuff. And then we have a bunch of different axes within that. So a popular one is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So that's your HPA axis. You hear the term adrenal fatigue is more of HPA axis dysregulation.
Okay, I'm catching about every third word. Is there a way to explain that a little bit?
A lot of words,
lower?
So hypothalamus tells the pituitary, hey, the adrenals are getting real tired. We need to pump up some cortisol so that way they get something.
Right.
Pituitary sends the signal out, or sends the signal back to hypothalamus. Okay, yeah, I see that. And then the hypothalamus tells adrenals, you need to pump up some more cortisol because you're running low. And adrenal fatigue, quote unquote, the adrenals are we can't do anything with this cortisol. We cannot function. And so that's when you get the dysregulation where the hypothalamus is like, you need more cortisol. You need more cortisol. And the adrenals are like, nope, I'm going to lay down and take a nap.
Right, like an overfunction to support the underfunction function of it.
And so it's a dysregulation. It's not so much, I mean, the adrenals are fatigued, but it's more of a dysregulation between those three.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So a lot of our endocrine glands and organs include pituitary, thyroid, our parathyroid, the pancreatic islets, the adrenals, the ovaries and testes, the pineal gland, the thymus, and adipose tissue. Those are all our endocrine glands and organs. Their sole focus is producing hormones, communication. And then some other hormone-producing organs, this is not their only job, but they play a role in that, would be the hypothalamus, the liver, the heart, kidneys, stomach, skin, and small intestine.
That's actually brand new information to me. I had no idea that all those other organs were producing hormones. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's really crazy to think about the fact that there's that much going on, communication going on within the body.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, it makes sense because that's how we stay alive. That's how we stay regulated. That's how our blood pressure stays within ranges. Everything stays within ranges, so that way we can function properly. So when we're addressing hormonal issues, it's really important to understand the stress cascade. And the stress cascade is blood sugar imbalances cause adrenal imbalances, which then cause pituitary imbalances, causes thyroid imbalances, which then causes sex hormone imbalances.
Oh, wow. So, this is why starting with your food, especially digestion, can actually take you really far in addressing issues that you might be having.
Yes, exactly. And so often we see people having an issue with their sex hormone imbalances. They're struggling with infertility, things like that, or low testosterone. And they just want to jump to, how do I bring my testosterone up? Not realizing that they have to go back up the cascade to, why aren't I getting the nutrients I need to make the sex hormones?
Right, yeah.
And a lot of times it's because of blood sugar imbalances. And the reason this is because the adrenals always take priority. We might see symptoms of thyroid or other kind of issues, but the real problem might be that the adrenals are taking up all of the nutrients that the thyroid or other things need, so that they aren't able to function properly.
Right.
So, like I said, the adrenals always take priority. And what that means is that if it's between your adrenals functioning and your sex hormones functioning, the body is always going to pick the adrenals, because the adrenals are what we need to stay alive.
Right. It's the survival takes precedence over procreation.
Exactly.
Or, other things.
So if you're struggling with sex hormone imbalances, it would do well to take a step back and see, where am I surviving?
Yeah.
How can I go from surviving to thriving? Because only in that state of abundance can we create.
Right.
You can't create out of nothing.
Right.
So if you want to create, or have the ability to create, then you need to make sure that you're having an abundance.
Yeah. Maybe this is the right time for this question, but tell us why, if I'm somebody who doesn't want to procreate, why do I want to have the ability to procreate?
Fertility is an indicator of general health.
Yeah.
If you are not healthy enough to procreate, then you are not healthy.
Yeah.
So if you have a sex hormone imbalance, you are infertile, other than actual biological issues
not having uterus.
Right.
Yes.
There are definitely
functional
defects. Yeah, functional defects. And that's not an issue of, just eat better, because it's not
right.
You can grow a whole new uterus or ovaries or something like that. But out of an abundance, you can procreate. So if you don't have that abundance, you're not going to be able to procreate, and health follows that.
Right. It's if you don't have an abundance, then you're literally just surviving.
Right. And if you're just on that tipping point of just surviving, then other things are starting to fail.
Yeah.
If your sex hormones have started to fail, that is a big alarm sign that your body has been failing for a long time, because it takes a long time for things to be so far out of balance before the sex hormones suffer. Remember the stress cascade. Blood sugar has to be out of balance for a while before you start seeing adrenal imbalances, because it's like, we can't control this. So now we're like, adrenals, you need to help us out. We're struggling. Adrenals are doing all they can, and after a while they're like, we can't do it. We got to pass this on to the pituitary. Pituitary after a while is like, we can't do it either. We got to pass this along to the thyroid. Thyroid after a while is like, I can't carry all of this, and passes it along to the sex hormones. And before you know it, everything is broken down.
You're out of options.
Yeah. And that's when you start to see hormone imbalance, like sex hormone imbalances.
Right. And when you say sex hormones, like, you're just talking about those, like, those key hormones, not necessarily like for the act of sex. It's like just like,
yes, the sex hormones, meaning testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, the ones that drive the ability to procreate.
Right, but they're for so many other things, not just procreation.
Exactly.
Yes.
And our next episode is going to be about the reproductive system, and we're going to do a much deeper dive into especially those 3 hormones. Like, there are definitely other hormones included in that category, but those 3 are the main big ones.
Yeah.
And I think the ones people are most familiar with.
Okay. Very cool.
So blood sugar imbalances are a sure way to stress the adrenals. Blood sugar regulation is super key to hormone balance. And the way blood sugar regulation works is, just quick overview, is we take in something that has carbohydrates, sugar, etc. The body sends out insulin. The insulin is the key to unlock the cell that allows blood glucose, so blood sugar, into the cells so that way it can be used for fuel. And then once the blood glucose goes up, then the body sends a signal to the pituitary that says, okay, we've got enough blood glucose, and they shut off the insulin. Insulin goes back down, so now the blood can just leave. Or the blood glucose can just leave, not your blood.
Not your blood. You just made this 10 times scarier.
So once your cells run out of blood glucose, then your pituitary sends another signal out. They're like, okay, our blood sugar's getting really low. We're going to need some more sugar. Then it sends a hormone out that tells your liver to release glycogen, which is a stored form of glucose. The glycogen goes out, gets converted back to glucose, and insulin goes back up to let the glucose back into your cells, and it goes like that for however long it can. The liver can store a decent amount of glycogen. That's how we sleep through the night and we don't need to eat. Right. It's because of our liver glycogen stores. If we don't have enough stored glycogen or enough carbohydrate or sugar in our diet, then the body is like, we don't have any glucose for you to have. You're going to have to make it. And do you know how it makes it? It sends a signal to the adrenals, and the adrenals use adrenaline and cortisol to bring up your glucose.
That sounds like maybe not the ideal way to achieve that function.
Yeah. And then you see people who are tired and wired because they're exhausted because they don't have enough glucose and energy, but their body is pumping out and using a ton of cortisol to try and regulate that glucose.
This is slightly off topic, but my wheels are turning and connecting things and realizing that this is why it feels so good when you cut carbs initially, because you're literally running on adrenaline. Your body is just pumping the adrenaline, and it feels so good until it doesn't.
That's it. A lot of people say fasting feels great. They get that high. It's because they're running on stress hormones, and we're supposed to feel good on stress hormones because we're supposed to keep going.
Survival.
We're running. We are in danger, and we need to feel great so we can get away.
It's hard to get away from your own diet, though, isn't it?
I was going to say, but the thing you're running from is you, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
So this is how blood sugar imbalances stress the adrenals. After a while, the adrenals are like, we can't manage your blood sugar for you. You have to eat.
Yes.
So that's just brief overview of how blood sugar imbalances can kick off that stress cascade of imbalancing your adrenals, imbalancing your pituitary, your thyroid, your sex hormones. And then hormones work via a negative feedback loop. So the things that turn them on, they turns on insulin. Insulin comes up, and then it sends a signal back, and it works reverse. So
it's like a float valve.
Yes.
It hits its limit, and it shuts it off.
It doesn't send out another hormone that says shut off. It just, once it reaches a parameter, then it shuts off. Works backward.
Cool.
Everything works backward that way.
Yes.
So that's a brief overview of the endocrine system. It's really hard to get into all the nitty-gritty stuff on the endocrine system.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's entire professions that all they do is endocrine system function.
But hopefully that was enough to get you curious.
Yeah.
Get you wanting to learn more about the endocrine system. It's super fascinating, and it's something I love talking about. So I would highly encourage doing a lot of research into this if it's interesting to you. It'll blow your mind, change the way you think about health and nutrition and food choices and everything.
This is a very interesting one, and I think the way we approached it kind of tells you where we're at as a society. Like our last ones, I feel like we're like, this is how things function, and not so much about how it dysfunctions, whereas almost all of this was about how it's dysfunctioning most of the time. I assume due to environmental issues and lifestyle issues, and honestly, some of our the things we're handed down from our parents already not functioning correctly. So it can be kind of disheartening, I think, when you get into this and realize we're just talking about dysfunction. But I'm pretty sure we stated this in a different episode. Like, your body was made to be self-healing. It's always going to be looking for the what's the word I'm looking for? Not balance, but like whatever it's supposed to be in, that state that it's supposed to be in, it's going to be looking for that.
Yeah,
so
homeostasis.
Yeah, that big word. It can be a little disheartening when you start listening to this one and be like, oh gosh, I have that problem and that problem, and it relates back to this, but like really, like it all goes back to supporting your body in really basic ways so that it has what it needs to be able to bring those functions back up to par.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it seems super complex, and some of it is really complex, but looking at it in the stress cascade way, you can start with blood sugar balancing.
Yes.
Just start there. It's pretty simple to balance blood sugar, and that can take you a long way. It's not a quick fix. It won't change overnight necessarily. Some people see really quick results, but most people have to work at it for a couple years before the body feels safe enough and balanced enough that everything follows. It works the reverse way. Like, you start balancing blood sugar, then your adrenals can balance. Then, just down the way.
Like you said, like each different part of your body has been covering for the other one, so that you probably didn't even notice. So you've been really tired for the last year. This may have started back in your teens, and your body's just been compensating and compensating and compensating. So like, even though you feel like, oh, this just started, why does it take so long to heal? Like, it may not have. It may have been a long time coming. So like I said, secret sauce is time. Yeah,
definitely. So some good enough ways to address endocrine system imbalances. We already said the first one. Balance that blood sugar. Make sure you're eating a balanced ratio of macronutrients. Macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs. Don't want a ton of carbs because that brings up a lot of insulin, or brings up a lot of blood sugar, which then creates a lot of insulin and creates that blood sugar imbalance.
Naked carbs.
Yes.
By themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you eat a lot of protein, it actually works in the opposite way. Protein lowers blood sugar if you don't have the carbs to go with it. So what we're looking for is those blood sugar waves, just a gentle rise. We do want to see a rise and a fall.
Yeah.
We don't want to see a spike and a drop. So by having protein and carbs together, you're going to see that gentle rise, gentle fall. Fat really helps to burn low and slow. Fat is like a log, carb is like kindling. You need them both.
Yes.
But having a good balance of those really helps your fire burn long and well.
Mm-hmm.
And then supporting your adrenals, reduce that stress. Some people need to reduce caffeine. Not everybody.
Yeah.
But some people do need to reduce the caffeine or caffeine without protein and fat. Because caffeine spikes that cortisol response. And so having some protein and fat kind of helps blunt that a little bit. Support your thyroid, clean drinking water, no fluoride or chlorine. I will go into that in a different episode, but just briefly, they are called halogens. They bind to iodine receptors on the thyroid. Then the thyroid can't get iodine, which it desperately needs for proper function.
Yes. Yep.
So that's really brief. But,
yes.
And then to support like sex hormones, goes back to blood sugar balances and making sure you have the right nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
So they all kind of need certain things. Progesterone really needs stress reduction.
Yeah.
Estrogen really needs antioxidants. Testosterone needs a lot of the same. And they all need like vitamin C and different minerals. So eating wide variety of whole foods, lots of antioxidant-rich foods, balancing those macronutrients. That's a lot of what you can do. I mean, it's a lot of all the same, but, different highlight for different things.
Right, yes. Well, this was just such a good overview, and I'm so glad we dove into it, and don't get overwhelmed. Hang in there. We've got a lot of good stuff coming. We're excited to get into more daily life stuff and how
Practical
to actually,
tips.
because that's the hard part, right? Like we can talk about
Right.
you should balance your blood sugar all day long, but like actually figuring out how it fits into your life and your lifestyle and your family, that's a harder one. But I think that'll about do it for the endocrine system, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to sharing more about the reproductive system in the next episode.
You've been listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast.
To learn more about my one-on-one packages, join my mailing list and follow me on Instagram at Kayla King Wellness.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast feed wherever you listen to podcasts. You don't want to miss an episode.
Join our community over on Instagram at Good Enough Wellness Podcast to learn about upcoming episodes and to interact with the Good Enough community.
The Good Enough Wellness Podcast, because good enough can be good enough.
Well, that's good enough for me.
Me too.